All right, looks like we are live and kicking here on this Monday. Wow, it's been a long haul. Let me tell you, it has been a long haul. This is Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you live from a brand new location. No longer in Austin, Texas. I am streaming to you live from Fredericksburg. That's right, Fredericksburg, Texas, which is about 75 miles west from Austin. It is deep in the heart of hill country. If you are leaving Austin and headed west, it's kind of the last sort of bastion or outpost of the Austin/Texas hill country geography. If you're coming to Austin, it's the first sort of town, oasis/burg that you'll encounter. And then it's another 75 miles to Austin from that point. So it's a pretty interesting place. There's a lot happening here in terms of growth. And fascinating times and I would say I'm doing pretty well in terms of the overall tenor of the move. To be quite honest with you, because I'm no spring chicken. And when you get into moves at this stage of your life, you're hoping that maybe it is the last move or second to last. This is not going to be the last move. This is a temporary situation, a temporary autonomous zone. And it's truly autonomous because I don't think anybody really knows me here. Except, of course, my girlfriend. And does she even really know me? I don't know. Does anybody know anybody? That's a really good question. Anyway, so this is where it's at. From here on out, this is what's happening. I'll give you a little bit of a visual from the room that I'm broadcasting to you from. I can actually see an elementary school. Yes, the bastion, the bastion of mind control is right across the street from my house. So I get to watch the pull-up and the drop-off, which I witnessed today. The pull-up and the drop-off. I'll never forget, and I know a lot of you out there are parents, and you can relate to this, but I'll never forget the first time I sent my son to school. It was one of the most heartbreaking experiences that I'd ever had. Watching him line up and single file right into that door. It was like I was watching him getting ready to be ground up by the killing machine. You know, it felt almost like Buchenwald or Auschwitz to me. It was really traumatic watching my kid wave and get swallowed up by this satellite of Saturnian consciousness. It was a bit much. Anyway, he's now going into the final phase of that experience when he actually begins to attend high school next fall. My, oh my, how times have changed. And you know what it's like when you move. You go through a bunch of stuff and stuff you haven't seen for a while. And, there's that, and there's that. And I ran across a calendar that that he had given to me, or his mom had created as a Christmas gift for me back in 2010. And, wow, 8 years ago. It's amazing how quickly 8 years has just ripped by. I know it's a cliche, we all talk about that, but it's true. That's absolutely true. So there you go. That's the lay of the land for now. There'll be more coming, obviously, once I get I'm in a brand new place. I'm still an apartment dweller. It's okay. I can live with it for now. But it's a brand new apartment, and it's so new that they haven't even hooked up the cable. So I'm waiting around for that to happen. And then once that gets switched on, slowly but surely the studio comes back, and all the great things that we've been doing for the past, when did I start really streaming? I've always been streaming since I've been in Austin. We went from Blog Talk Radio to Spreaker, and Spreaker was, about almost 2 years ago now. I have over 200 shows on Spreaker, and then, of course, the Sunday night live streams, which have been really successful and a lot of fun to do. And, of course, they'll be back up and running as soon as I get my internet back, get my internets back up and running. So that's it. That's the lay of the land, and we'll be hitting it every day now from here on out. Even today, look, I'm streaming on my phone. That's how dedicated I am. I am streaming on my phone. Why? Because this is what I do. This is my dharma, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I love connecting with all of you, and I have certainly missed it, and thank you for all the well wishes and the few little bones you people have been throwing me in terms of information and links as I sort through them, as well as myriads of boxes from my past. It's always interesting when you move and you encounter the people that help you move and their stories. You know what I'm talking about? I bet you do. So what's going on in the world out there? Well, before I get into what's happening with Trump and McCabe and the whole FBI thing, which is kind of big, I just want to, because I try to stay in touch with things. I try to stay in touch with what's going on as much as I can. And by the way, I have cracked a major astrological code as it relates to false flags, psyops, and social conflict. I'm not going to talk about it today, though. I will talk about it on Sunday night. And before Sunday night rolls around, I will have written about it. It was one of those moments. I was driving the moving truck, and I was thinking about everything that's happened, with the latest being this joke of a protest that's been theoretically formulated by these kids, the spontaneous combustion of social consciousness, these kids in Parkland, Florida, and all over the country. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about a few other things, and guess what I saw? I saw a pattern. That emerged, and I can tell you unequivocally where the next series of psyops, social conflict, social interchange, social action is going to take place. Unequivocally. But I'm not going to say it today, because I need to write about it first. One of the things that I'm looking forward to here is getting back into a new cycle of production. I'm thrilled to be energized and motivated and inspired to really get into more writing and reinvesting in my website on so many different levels. And I think if you've been following my stuff for a while now, I think you'll be pleased to know that this move, especially at this time of year, is reinvigorating me. Doubling down on my purpose. That's exactly what I'm doing. And from an astrological perspective, it's really good timing. I spent the first night of my place on the new moon in Pisces. And where is that new moon hanging out? My fourth house of the home. And here I am with the moon. I believe it's in Aries. I haven't had a chance to look, but I believe it's in Aries. My first podcast streaming from this location. Thrilled about that. Absolutely thrilled. Okay, let's get into some of the stuff that's happening out there. Before I drop down into the McCabe stuff and some of the related pieces, because a lot's happened since I last had a Friday Firecast. Rex Tillerson got fired. King Tillerson. And, man. Okay, so I do listen to Alex Jones for a number of reasons. Mostly because I want to see how Alex is either evolving or de-evolving. And I have to say that there's a reason why InfoWars is in trouble. And it's not because the left has singled out Alex Jones and has decided to take him down. Although there is some merit and credence to that. Apparently he's got all these lawsuits that he's having to deal with. I think it's a different issue altogether. And here's how I see it. Alex Jones is somebody who was always a gatekeeper. I mean, always a gatekeeper. Let's be clear about that. That was his role. He was anointed to be a gatekeeper. He was given the opportunity to share bits and pieces of the truth. And if you listen to Alex Jones now, and you go back and you listen to Alex Jones, say, 7 years ago, it's a very different show. Very, very different. I mean, he was much more into like systems of control, and it was easy for him to rail against Obama because Obama was the other, right? Trump is not the other. Trump and Jones are a byproduct of one another in many ways. And when I listen to him now, he's always been an apologist. Or let me rephrase that. He's always been a mute witness to the genocide that's happening in Palestine / Gaza. He's always been a mute witness to that. He never, ever, ever mentions it. If he does, he mentions it in terms of Hamas, who he believes is a radical Islamic terror group. And my crawling down the Hamas rabbit hole is that Hamas has actually been infiltrated by Israel. There's a lot of Palestinians that don't trust Hamas. They don't trust them because they feel like Hamas has been infiltrated, and so their relationship with this group that's supposed to represent them is, in some ways, similar to how we feel about our own political representatives. That Hamas has been compromised. So there's a very different story than what's being depicted by Alex Jones and what Hamas is supposed to be. But Jones never gets close to the third rail. He never, ever, 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 ever mentions the Rothschilds. Never. Never. Never mentions the Rothschilds. He never talks about the amount of spying that the Israelis do 24/7. Never. Like, if you really drill down into the NSA and into the CIA and the FBI and all their communication systems, who do you think is behind those communication systems? It's the Israelis. They've created the spine of those systems, which means they have backdoors all over the place and they can listen to anybody, anyplace, anytime. Jones never talks about this. Period. End of story. He never talks about AIPAC. Never. Never. So he's a complete and utter gatekeeper in this regard. But he's become more than that now. More than that. He'll talk about Soros. He loves George Soros. Because George Soros is the visible, tangible villain that he can vilify. Soros is nothing more than a bagman for the Rothschilds. I've been saying this for a long time. And a few people have picked up on it and know what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about people in the quote-unquote truth world. But watching Jones now is fascinating because he's gone from being a gatekeeper to guess what he is now? He's a spin doctor. He is a spin doctor. So when something happens in the Trump administration, and this is where I'm getting to like the replacements here. We should, there was that movie with Keanu Reeves called The Replacements. This is what's going on in the Trump administration, the replacements. So when something happens now, he becomes the spin doctor and the bulldog. So for instance, when Steve Bannon was kicked out of Oz, what did Alex Jones do? He just went straight down Steve Bannon's throat. It was like, okay, I can go after this guy now. He has no cover anymore. He didn't do it before. He did not. See, this is the thing about Alex Jones. He didn't do it before because he wasn't sure if it was kosher to take down Steve Bannon. But as soon as it was, boy, he was like a wolf that was going after, a wounded elk or something like that. He had wasted no time And the scorn that he heaped upon Steve Bannon was unmitigated and totally epic. I mean, he's just going after the guy. So every time somebody leaves the Trump administration, Jones is there to jump right in. The latest is Tillerson. And apparently Tillerson had a globalist aide. So he's going after Tillerson. He's going after the woman that was his aide. And he does it with, again, abandon and glee. That's what he does. He's a complete and total attack dog and spin doctor. Now he's spinning Mike Pompeo as the new Secretary of State. And says, well, you gotta love it now that Pompeo is not a good guy. I mean, this is not a good dude. I mean, he was so Pompeo went from, this is how politics in the 21st century work. Pompeo and Trump went from singing the praises of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, because those WikiLeaks dumps, while they may not have completely been the cause or the reason for Trump being elected, they certainly helped. And at that point in time, they had no problem accepting that kind of down and dirty intel about the Democrats. It was huge. I mean, we look back on that time now, which really wasn't that long ago, but it was, I don't think we could really understand the enormity of what took place, because we were just thrown into this maelstrom of this series of events, which was Trump and the debates with Hillary Clinton, which to this day are you look back on those debates and they're mind-blowing. They're absolutely mind-blowing, because we'd never seen anything. It was more like professional wrestling than it was actually true debating. But the thing that was fueling those debates, or the information, was the WikiLeaks stuff. And of course, Trump was more than happy to use that information, and Pompeo was more than happy to use that information. And now, on the other side of it, look, I think Julian Assange is gone. I don't think he is in that embassy anymore. I think he's been gone for well over a year now. Wherever he is, he's not there. And WikiLeaks, in my estimation, was always a limited hang. It was always created to give the appearance of actually having these third-party, super anonymous zones where they could just dump information. And I always argued that the information that we were getting was interesting, but not really of the highest degree or order. So, for instance, where were the real bombshells around 9/11? Where were the bombshells around 9/11? You wouldn't find any of that on WikiLeaks. There was stuff about troop movements, and there was stuff about civilian casualties in Iraq, which obviously is news, but felt more like, how do I say this? It felt more like just kind of feeding a few scraps of meat to the plebes, to whet our appetite around this mechanism, which was going to become WikiLeaks, and then ultimately becoming this portal for truth. Well, some interesting things and tragic things happened along the way. People associated with Julian Assange died. His lawyer died. People that were connected to WikiLeaks from a technical side died. Seth Rich died. And one day there was a raid on the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and the Americans were there. That's right. And there's video of it on YouTube. And now all of a sudden, where's Julian Assange? We haven't had any proof of life for a very long time. There was that interview with Sean Hannity, which was completely green screened. Hannity and Julian Assange were not in the same room. I don't know where Assange is, but he's not at that embassy anymore. Anyway, bottom line is now all of a sudden Trump wants to go after Assange. Well, there's no Assange to go after. He's gone. But he's going after the phantom of Assange. And, of course, Pompeo is parroting the same kinds of party lines that Trump is talking about in terms of security and in terms of breach of security and whistleblowers. Like, when it suited them, they were fine. They were fine. But now that they're in a position of power, they don't want the same kind of whistleblowing effect reverberating back to them because trust me, there's plenty of dirt. There's plenty of dirt that they can dredge up here and more than likely make it stick. So they want to shut it down. It's like, thank you very much. We used this mechanism. It was very helpful. It helped us, helped me get elected, and now let's shut it down. And that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. So we have now McCabe from the FBI being ousted. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal because we had Comey, and I think you had the number 2 guy in McCabe. They're both gone. And there are guys, and all these guys inside the intelligence community, they all circle jerk one another. They're all like hanging out, and circle jerking, and you know, furthering each other's careers and their tenure in the security / information / to some degree defense business in the United States. So John Brennan comes out now. He's vociferous in his support around Andrew McCabe, but and Brennan apparently is kind of next on the list, and he knows it. He's like, he feels to me like he's wounded prey, and they're circling him because this is a guy that was deeply involved in setting up the surveillance systems. I mean, this is Watergate worthy. And look, I am not a fan of the left, and I'm certainly not a fan of necessarily this version of the right. But if I had to go one way or the other, I'd probably go more right than left, because all the left wants at this point is the social Marxist overthrow of our systems. And the right, of course, has been perpetuating that relationship for a very long period of time. You know, they do a dance with one another. And again, if you have not listened to Anthony Sutton, please do. Find his talks on the internet. You will get the primer of how the game works. You get the primer of how the game works with the left-right dynamic and how Skull and Bones pumps out equal numbers of left and right on both sides. And clearly, the one event that shows or illustrates how that works was the election between John Kerry and George Bush. You had one guy on the left and one guy on the right, and they were both Skull and Bones members. There it is. Not so hidden in plain sight for everybody to see. Okay? For everybody to see. So it's all out there. But anyway, so now we've got Brennan also in the crosshairs, and apparently something, and I'm going to try to pick up on this more tomorrow, because again, I'm just putting all these things together just so I can get my feet on the ground and get a show in here with you folks, is that apparently McCabe said something, and then Comey said something, and now it's looking like Comey has perjured himself, which is a big deal, because if he has perjured himself, meaning that he said something different than what he said under oath, and I believe this would have to do with Hillary Clinton and the emails and the server and that entire fiasco, then Comey could be in serious trouble. Now, here's what would happen if that's the case and Comey has perjured himself. Well, that means that they have the goods on Comey, and that they can muscle him. They can apply some pressure so that now all of a sudden Comey gets to talk about things, or has to talk about things in ways that, well, he certainly wasn't talking about before. Again, kind of a big deal, if that is indeed the case, and if they do use this perjury piece as leverage We've never seen anything like this before. And there are bigger pieces going on at the same time. We've got an economy that is teetering and tottering, and the international dollar is getting hosed. And, maybe I can talk about that later this week. Certainly feels like the fireworks around the cryptos have all sort of subsided. And it's funny now because I got into Litecoin, and I'm watching my Litecoin thing sort of, lose a few dollars every day. Like, okay. But I watch, what's going on in terms of Bitcoin, Bitcash, Ethereum, Litecoin, and they're all following the same cycle. They're all in the same cycle. When one goes up, everyone goes up. When one goes down, so it's like, what is going on here? What kind of algorithms are in place now in blockchain? I'm certainly not qualified. Maybe I'll get Eric Roth on. I'll have Eric. Maybe once I get settled, I'll bring Eric on. Eric is a good friend, and he's a wizard of blockchain. Maybe he can speak to the cycles that I'm talking about. Do we have chat today? Anybody in the chat room? There are no messages yet. Leave a message. No. Oh, just checking the chat. I have some effects here in the phone. I don't have these effects on my studio, but I do have some effects here I could play with. But I don't want to play with them if they're out of context. So we have this whole thing now going on with Peter Strzok. Now, apparently this Peter Strzok guy, had a relationship with a judge. This Peter Strzok guy, he was a Lothario, right? So he had the relationship with the aide, his connection inside the FBI. Now he's got a relationship with a female judge, apparently. Peter Strzok was living large. I mean, think about that. You're an FBI guy, and I think he's FBI, isn't he? Pretty sure. Anyway, you're a guy that's inside the Beltway, and you've got some leverage and some power, and you get a company car, an expense account, and suits, and all kinds of cool stuff, and cool tech toys, and you're like secret agent man, living life like it's a movie. Anyway, so all of that's going on. We're watching the disassembling of this whole apparatus. Now, we have to ask ourselves, what's going on behind the scenes? Is Trump and the people surrounding Trump in the process of creating a whole new intelligence apparatus? Think about that for a second. Just think about it. That's quite possible. And what we might be seeing here in the final days of Uranus and Aries is the disassembling of the intelligence apparati that have essentially been spying on us and informing the government and the corporate partners of the government for decades. And wouldn't it be in Trump's best interest to have his own kind of secret police? Of course it would. So just file that away if Trump makes it through the next 2 years. And I have some thoughts about that. That he may not make it through the next 2 years. Now, if you listen and follow the show, and I talked about this, probably about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, I started to talk about what's going to happen with Trump astrologically. And I said that he's going to start to have problems with his kids. And I don't know, and the one that I targeted more than any of them was Don Trump Jr. And the reason why is that Don Trump Jr. is a Capricorn, which means that his son is in Trump's fifth house of children, and Saturn is crossing Don Trump Jr.'s son, S-U-N, and it looks like Don Trump Jr. is headed for divorce. That his blonde bombshell wife, which seems to be the signature trophy effect inside the Trump family, is going to leave him. And not only is she going to leave him, but apparently she's hired a criminal lawyer. Okay? Now, whether or not Don Trump Jr. is guilty of some kind of money scheme, or because that's usually what these people are involved in, right? I don't know. I don't know the inside baseball on this, but when somebody hires a criminal lawyer, that means that they need to be represented. That means that there is something going on behind the scenes that is extremely concerning to them. So Don Trump Jr. is headed for a divorce, and his wife is opting for a much more hardcore version of an attorney, not just any attorney, right? A criminal attorney. So this is one of the issues and challenges that Trump is going to have to deal with. You know, again, the Stormy Daniels stuff, that could be Fifth House related. It could be Fifth House related, love affairs, things like that. Saturn going through that fifth house, and Saturn opposing his Venus and Mercury and Saturn in the 11th house in Cancer, which is his electorate. I'm telling you right now, this summer is going to be pretty significant in terms of Trump and where he's going and his relationship with his base. And his base has gone through an awakening process. And what you want to do, of course, or what they want to do, is they want to shepherd and gatekeep the base and move them along into these different, avenues or venues, whether it's another mega event or whether it's the press or liars, or whether it's QAnon or MegaNon. There's clearly an effort to move people into areas where they're much more controllable to a large extent. So this summer is going to be very, very interesting. I'm telling you right now. And then, of course, we have Easter Sunday coming up with the Mars-Saturn conjunction. That'll be interesting as well. I guess the clock is ticking on Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg and Cameron Kasky. If you don't follow me on Facebook, I posted 3 incendiary posts last week while I was moving. I stumbled across some stuff. It looks like, and it's really funny because when I was doing background searches on the Hogg family, I kept coming back to the Gonzalez family. I'm like, what's up with Gonzalez? And it was the Gonzalez connection in Torrance, California, and also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, La Costa, which is near San Diego. So there are San Diego and Torrance connections with the Hoggs and the Gonzalezes. Turns out that Emma Gonzalez's mother is Kevin Hogg, David Hogg's sister. Okay, can you dig it? Emma Gonzalez is David Hogg's first cousin. Yeah, that's right. And where's that in the media? Media is not reporting on that at all. And then you get people like, well, does it really matter? Does it really matter whether they're first cousins or not? Because what really matters is what they're talking about. No, of course it matters. Of course it matters. But the clock is ticking on their 15 minutes of fame. It'll be interesting to see what happens and how they're able to sustain or not sustain. They're the next series of cutouts. And then all of a sudden they'll just recede into the background. Although they may keep David Hogg around. He may prove to be quite beneficial. He's also connected to John Podesta. He was if you go back into David Hogg's Twitter channel, may as well be Kevin Hogg's. If you go back into David Hogg's Twitter channel, you'll find that his first series of tweets were from a CFA event, which is Center for American Progress or whatever it's called, which is John Podesta's group. He went to one of their events and he was tweeting about how great it was. So we have a kid that's got links to John Podesta. There was another series of tweets with Cameron Kasky, and Cameron Kasky was sitting there having his picture taken with Nellie Orr, OHR. And this is the woman who helped create the GPS Fusion dossier. And in that tweet it said, taking a break with the grand architect of the movement. How about that? It's all out there. Nobody's picking it up. Nobody. It's all out there. Also, Emma Gonzalez, actually there is one person picking it up, which is, I forget the name of this guy. But Emma Gonzalez is also now, I don't know, I can't, like the Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg bloodline, it's pretty clear, pretty obvious, and not that debatable. Okay, Cameron Kasky in that picture with Nellie Orr, not debatable. David Hogg's tweets, not debatable. They're there. Go back into his Twitter feed. They're there. Now, there is an Emma Gonzalez who is an actress. She's about 25 years old, and she has an IMDb page and was part of an internet series about food. And if you look at her in a certain angle and shave her head, there's a good chance this could be the same Emma Gonzalez. Now, I'm not saying it is, but there's a good chance that she is. You can look it up. One of the things that's interesting about this little internet food series this Emma Gonzalez did was there was an episode called Valentine's Day. Coincidence, most likely. I don't think it was so pre-planned that they're going to leave that behind as a clue. But it's interesting, nonetheless. Anyway, they're going to be on stage at least one more time, the 24th of March, which is not very far from today in terms of time. So we'll keep our eyes on that. And again, things can happen between now and the 24th. It's all quiet on the false flag psyop front for now. But just wait. We might get one more to punch whatever it is they want to punch through. Meanwhile, North Korea is very quiet. And supposedly there's supposed to be talks in North Korea. We'll see. There have been talks going on for months now. There's been so much back channel stuff happening that there's a reason why Kim is making these adjustments. It's not because his advisors from China or Russia have been telling him to. No, there have been talks going on for months now. That's right. Back channel stuff for a very long time. And we'll see what happens there. Of course, Iran is in the crosshairs, but I don't think we're going to get these. I don't think we're going to get these wars with Iran or North Korea. I don't think they're happening. And as the week goes on, I'll tell you why I don't think they're going to happen. Because I think there's something bigger taking place at this time. All right, well, I think that's good, right? You guys get enough? Did you get enough for the day? What are we? How long am I into this? I can't tell. 38 minutes. 38 minutes is a good amount of time for me to dip my feet back in the water. And I hope I gave you some information that you can chew on. And I promise in the days to come, I'll dial up the humor a little bit. We'll get the humor dial up a little bit more. Okay? All right, so first broadcast. It's in from Fredericksburg, Texas, on the Aries moon. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame.